Basically, starting from the very first thing of the day, right? You know, I'm sure your teachers have always told you, you know, start out with some buzzing, start out with some long tones. How many people actually do this? It's good. Keep doing that. You'd be surprised how many students I have, or how many students I will come take a lesson, and I say, you know, have you been doing your buzzing? And of course they'll say, you know, oh, absolutely, every day, yes, sir. But well, then why doesn't it show? You know, and so you got to do these things, but you have to do them with the right results in mind, and you also need to do them a lot, like more than you probably would think, right? Whenever I was at UT Austin in my undergrad, I was pretty awful. I was on tenor trombone, and I was convinced that I was gonna be the next Joe Alessi. And I was just like, that's me. I'm short. I'm Jewish. I got it. Let's do this, right? All right. And it really wasn't happening. I was listening to his CDs, and I was trying to play along with them, and I'm like, man, you know, he gets to a point around like E above the staff, but he just keeps going, and I stop. You know, it's not a good sign for a tenor trombone player. So Dr. Briggins had me switch over to bass trombone, and I was very reluctant to do so. But once I finally did, it was sort of eye-opening, like what I couldn't do on a bigger mouthpiece. I was playing on like a 5G before, Bach 5G, and then he switched me over to equivalent of a dumpster, you know, like it was like a trash can on a trombone, and I had no idea what to do. I could barely make a sound, and so I really had to go back to the basics. And I did something that, you know, every student is supposed to do, but rarely does. I played long tones for like an hour or 2 hours a day, every single day, until I got better. And for like the first 2 months, it was miserable because I wasn't getting any better. But then I started noticing a little bit of change. I started noticing my sound opening up a little bit more, my intonation getting a little bit better, my attacks, my response, everything was sort of just getting better. And I realized that I was so determined to not be wrong about being a professional trombone player that that's sort of what drove me to do all this practicing. And I mean, yes, the motivation needs to be there, but I'm a strong believer that the process getting there doesn't need to suck. So one thing that I started doing now is I still do long tones every single day. I still do buzzing every single day, but I do it differently, and I do it with a little bit of help. Basically, what I'll do is I'll put on like how many of you guys know the band Muse? Maybe some of you guys. How about Mumford and Sons? Does that cover a little bit more? Okay, maybe half of you guys know those two bands, but I like those two bands a lot. And so what I'll do is when I first get my horn out, I know I need to buzz for 20 minutes to sound good. So instead of sitting there and you know, it's really boring to me, so I just put a song on and I'll play drones beneath it. For the next song, I'll follow the melody. For the next song, I'll try and harmonize. But the basic idea is that I was just hanging out listening to music, and I got 20 minutes of buzzing in. So buzz along to the radio, buzz along, make it fun so that you actually do it, because if you don't do it, you're not going to get the benefits of it. Whenever I go to the horn and I actually start playing, I've written out, I've got a little notepad where I actually have like the keys of songs, just so I can remember them. And eventually I don't need it anymore, so like I'll put on Muse Hysteria or something like that, and I think it's in, well, I don't remember, so apparently I do need it. I think it's in like, we'll say B flat, right? So I'll just start out with a B flat, and I'll try and follow it. Most of the time it's a 1-4-5-1 harmonic progression. So these pop songs are very, very predictable, right? And it's a good way to train your ear around the pitch as well. So I'm playing long tones, moving along with the harmonic progression of the song, and at the same time, I've got a drone, because these songs are auto-tuned, right? It's a big secret. They are. You know, they're all auto-tuned, so you've got this drone that you can play along with that isn't as boring or like, you know, skull-numbing as a drone going off in your ear. So I usually buzz about 2 songs, and then I'll hit the horn for a couple songs, and if it doesn't feel right, if it doesn't feel fresh, like I don't feel like it's my best day again, you know, then I'll put the horn back down and I'll go back to buzzing. And I do something that I want to share with you guys. It's helped me a lot. If it helps you, cool. If not, you know, leave it here. But it's something I do called hand buzzing. That's really helped me out a lot. Basically, whenever I buzz without the hand or without any sort of resistance on the mouthpiece, initially I found it very difficult to get a good sound and to actually get a buzz. Like, I feel like free buzzing and buzzing without resistance are some of the harder forms of buzzing. So I've added just a little bit of resistance and sort of a resonance chamber, and I take it right here with my hand, and then I just cup my other hand around it, and it sounds like this. And I find that adding just a little bit of resistance when first getting into buzzing and first like doing those necessary rudiments, it helped a lot to actually produce a buzz and be something I was happy with, instead of and then just being like, well, that sucked, put this away. So I'll hand buzz these songs. That's something I meant to mention, but I'll hand buzz these songs, and I'll do 2 of them. Get on the horn. If it doesn't feel great, I'll do a 3rd song. And usually, honestly, I don't even stick to that. I get carried away sometimes. I'll do like 5 songs, and I warmed up this morning buzzing for like 30 minutes, and I was like, I should probably stop so I don't just kill my face. But 30 minutes of buzzing out of the way, and I actually enjoyed it. Same thing with the long tones. Before I figured out how to actually have fun with this, I was on the horn when I first switched to bass trombone. I just sat at a piano and I would hit middle C, play middle C, and I would hold it as long as I could, biggest breath in, and just as long as I could with a nice natural taper. Be natural. Be natural as long. Seriously, how boring is that? I was bored to tears when doing it, but it helped, so I decided to keep it in my routine, but figure out a way of doing it. It was more fun, so I actually did the long tones to pop music, and that actually, I ended up doing like 20 minutes of long tones without even realizing it. So once I get past that point, I do scales every single day, like starting on pedal B flat, working my way down the B flat, pedal B flat partial, doing 3-octave scales. I start by glissing them just to sort of get the sound going, and then I articulate them to get the tongue going, and then I'll do lip slurs to get just sort of a little bit of flexibility. But another thing that I wanted to sort of bring in today was that was the idea of trying to be more detailed in your practice. Be more focused on very small elements, and then put them back into the puzzle. So, for instance, like I said, I gliss my scales every single day just so that I can focus on sound production. It's a very simple scale pattern. I've been doing it probably for 5 years, but it's something that I can do every single day to sort of as like a litmus test to say, it's like, all right, am I back to where I should be? Like, what do I need to adjust? What's different today? Well, that cheeseburger I ate last night's kind of not feeling so great on my face, so I can make proper adjustments because I know how that scale is supposed to sound. I know how it sounds on my best day, and if it doesn't sound that way, then I keep doing it until it does sound that way. And usually, when you get really good at making these minor adjustments, you can do it pretty quickly. Eventually, you can just make those minor adjustments, and I feel like I don't have many bad days anymore. They're occasional, but I feel like more often I have good day, good day, good day, good day, bad day, good day, good day, good day, instead of the other way around. And it's by figuring out why you have a good day. When you have a good day, why is it, and how can I get back to it? So one thing I do is I start out pedal B flat. So on and so forth, going through all the modes. I like to say going through all the modes because it makes me sound smart, but I'm really not thinking of it like that. I just move up to C and say the key, but it essentially sounds cooler, right? So I go all the way up to high B flat, just making sure that my sound is the exact same, and I'm happy with it all the way from pedal B flat all the way up to high B flat. And usually once I get that, I can move on to articulating, and the sound remains. I'm able to articulate with the full sound at the beginning of the note all the way to the end of the note without having to think about it. I don't have to tell myself, hey, break up your notes a little bit more. It's there because you're using your air properly. Sorry, one thing I meant to mention, and whenever you're doing these glistening or just any sort of thing involving this warm-up with glistening, just one airstream. I take a huge breath in as big as I can, and then I just play until I'm out of air. It trains you to just do that in the music, and so you're taking less time to breathe, right? I'm a firm believer that in music, you know, if the composer wanted a break, they would have written one. And so we do everything we can to not create space for breathing. It's not in the line, right? Once I do that, I move on to lip slurs. And basically, what I'm doing with this is I started out by played this piece at UT. What was it, like the Chief or something like that? It has this one part where it goes down to like one tenor trombone just going right? Stardust. Which one is it?
Stardust.
Stardust. All right. And we had this guy there, Graham Gibson, that Dr. Briggins handed the solo off to, and he started doing this lip slur, and I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, how can you do that? You know, and it was simple. I asked him, I was like, dude, how do you do it? He's like, well, I just practice it every day. I mean, and it just kind of blew my mind that it's like, it really is that simple, you know? So I started out with, I started doing lip slurs that day, and I hated them, so I stopped. And then when I got to grad school, naturally, right? Then when I got to grad school, this guy I was in grad school with, I mean, he was easily the top of our studio at Northwestern, and I asked him, I said, so how much would you say lip slurs are a part of your daily routine? And I mean, it was a very simple answer. He was like, at least like 70 to 75% of my daily routine is dedicated to lip slurs and, you know, moving around them, but just going through the partials. It's like, well, that makes sense. We're an instrument built on partials. We should be really good at that, right? So I started out with B flat in first position, and basically I don't structure it too much. I just want to get the feeling of moving through the partials and making sure that I know what it feels like to slur up to a B flat, slur up to a D, slur up to an F. And it's more about memorizing how it feels so that you can recreate a feeling instead of recreating instructions, right? You don't want to tell yourself, oh, okay, so you pinch the lips together, you move, you know, you do that with the muscles. You're going to be lost. You know, you're going to be driving yourself nuts. Try and memorize the way it feels, and then recreate a feeling, an overall. So be the next point, but an overall idea. But basically, it ends up being something like that, to where when I don't like the interval, I just keep doing it until I smooth it out and make it something that I do like. And last point I wanted to make before we get on to hearing some of these guys, these excellent players, come up, is whenever you're recreating a sound, when you're recreating your technique, your air, you know, try and think of it more as a final product. Instead of, all right, I'm going to do this with my air, I'm going to do this with my tongue, I'm going to do this with the inside of the cavity of my mouth, you know, I'm going to do this with my lips, you know, like, it's just way too much, and I feel like a lot of times players get bogged down. It's like, well, whenever I do this line, I've got to do this with my lips, and then I got to, you know, create an overall feeling. And again, this goes back to incorporating music, listening to pop music into my practice, and how much it's actually become a part of who I am as a player. But basically, like I've realized that in our many years of practicing, we've created physical responses to what we hear, right? This room, for instance, right? It's a lovely resonant room, right? So a lot of times, whenever I first played in here, I heard it and I started adjusting my playing. I freaked out and I caved in, and you know, it was if you haven't played in here, you know, at some point get up here and just like play a few notes. It just sucks the tone right out. And I started like adjusting things. Like I started adjusting the way I blew the air, the way I started just overthinking it instead of just going back to how it feels to play. So we've created physical responses to what we hear, and sometimes in order to improve ourselves, we must disable these responses so that we can create new, better ones. So for instance, what I kind of realized this while I was practicing like a co-proche etude one day. And every single time I got to this one part, I'd mess it up. And so I eventually started tensing up as I'd get to that part because it was hard for me and I knew I wasn't going to get it. And the only thing I heard in my head was me failing every single time. So I sort of realized, I'm like, man, I haven't even played it yet and I've already defeated myself. I've already just like clamped down, my body gets tense, my air slows down, and then it's definitely not going to happen. So I was like, all right, what's the solution here? All right, well, stop listening to myself. Yeah, that'll be nice. I just don't want to hear myself mess that up. So I started putting in headphones just because I was really getting bummed about listening to myself constantly mess something up that I really wanted to be good at. And I eventually started just glistening through it and trying to play it. And I kept failing at it, but I practiced it more because I didn't hear myself fail at it, and it didn't get me down. And so I was able to keep doing it, and I was like, wow, all right, I'm actually getting better at this. Surprise, surprise, I practice something and it gets better, right? You know, like it's just repetition will eventually make you a better player if you're doing it the right way and focusing on the right end result. So I listen to music that's louder than what I'm playing, but I can still hear general pitch, right? I don't hear cracked notes. It's almost like standing behind someone, behind their bell when they're playing, or in the next room in an audition. Like everyone sounds awesome in the next room in an audition, right? You know, everyone sounds awesome outside the practice room. In the open, it's like, oh, we were cracking a lot of notes, but I'm gonna step back out here because it was good. That's what I hear whenever I just use earbuds. It's not like they're not noise cancellation or any of that, but just earbuds so that I can still hear outside the headphones. And I remember thinking, I was like, man, I sound really good. Let me take these headphones off. Nope. Put it back on. And it was astonishing to me, but my one thought was, it didn't sound perfect yet, but it sounded better than it was before. And I realized, it's like, wow, I'm actually practicing the stuff that I hate to practice because I'm just not letting it, I'm not like failing at it so much and hearing myself constantly fail at it. But basically, whenever I was doing it, I was also realizing that by not listening to myself and creating those physical responses to the oral input from the trombone, I wasn't tensing up anymore, and I was relaxing, and I was actually letting my body learn. You know, I was learning, all right, how to do that arpeggio, or how to do that lip slur in a relaxed state, just as I want to perform it. And I've learned that in doing this, that eventually when it feels right, it sounds right. You know, I would play the same arpeggio over and over, and after like a couple weeks of doing this, I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to hear what this sounds like. You know, it feels right. I don't feel a cracked note in there. I don't feel like I'm missing anything. And sure enough, I took the headphones out, and it sounded great. I was like, oh, like yeah, I've never sounded like that in my life. So I eventually just started doing that on everything I practiced, on all my excerpts and on everything, and everything started getting a little bit better, and I actually would end a practice session happy. And I'd go home and be like, man, that was productive, all right. And regardless of how it sounded, I didn't get down, and I came the next day thinking I was awesome, even though, take the headphones out, probably wasn't that awesome at the time. I mean, it's so crucial to have that motivation whenever you're picking the horn up and really trying to conquer something that's been an uphill battle. So basically, that's sort of a lot of my ideologies as a player and in the practice room, what I really cling to sort of keep me going on a daily basis. of things you did really well, but one thing that really caught my ear was your sound, right? Right away, great sound, okay? And that, I can see that it's directly related to the way he breathes. Did you guys notice how he took that first breath? I mean, it was dark, it was heavy, it was low in pitch, right? And that will directly result in the sound that comes out the instrument, you know? If any of you guys caught the Megumi Kondo Masterclass the other day, she's sort of saying the same thing. If you take a breath, that's right. What's going to come out? Ah, right. You know, but if you take a lower breath, you're setting up your muscles, you're setting up your throat, the cavity of your mouth to stay that way when you play. Okay. So first off, great sound, very nice legato, very beautiful. It's very beautiful all around, right? A couple things I want to work on. So you're playing with the time a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. When you do that, what are you following? Are you following sort of just like inner musical gut, or is it planned out?
Some of it is just inner musical, what I feel, and then a lot of it is planned out. Like some of the sequence measures, I
push a little pull.
Push a little bit, and then coming off of them, I
pull back on the time a little bit. Okay, great. And I liked a lot of things you did, but let's make it better, right? Mm-hmm. Are you subdividing throughout this? In your head?
Yeah.
Throughout the whole time, though. Or at least when you're playing with the time.
Yeah. Okay.
Something that's really important, like time is sort of one of those sacred elements of trombone playing that. You know, when you're either in the pocket or you're not in the pocket whenever it comes to time, you know, and I'm being picky right now, but basically when you decide to play with the time, you decide to push it forward and pull it back, you need to be doing it in the most organic way possible, you know, and the best way to control that is by subdividing, you know, that whenever you push the time forward a little bit, that it's even, that you're pushing it forward, that it doesn't just suddenly lurch forward or lurch back, you know what I mean? But it gradually goes forward in a beautiful fashion, comes back in a beautiful fashion, when it's not marked, right? I'm not talking about different tempo markings, I'm talking about when there's one tempo marking and you're playing with the time, right? So always keep that subdivision in your head so that, you know, you can have those retards be very metered and even. And you'd be surprised that as a listener, whenever we hear these, you know, when you hear a perfect retard or a perfect accelerondo, it just, you don't notice it. It just sounds good and it feels good to hear it, you know what I mean? But the moment I notice you playing with time, it means you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Okay, yeah. So play with it in a way play the time in a way that no one notices, just because it's so perfectly even going forward and perfectly even coming back. Second thing, can you just start at the top for us one more time? Play just 4 bars. Okay, great. A couple of things. So in this excerpt, and again, I'm gonna be really picky about it because I've worked on this one a lot to the point where I'm super picky about myself with it, and so I sort of made these mistakes as well. A lot of times we will, like coming up to that last C, we know, okay, I need air for it. So what you did probably without noticing it is you took a breath, played 2 notes, and took another breath, played 2 notes, and then went to the C, right? So you know, it's like you end up breaking the music up a lot to show sort of a human weakness that, when overcome, can actually sort of put you above the next person, right? Mm-hmm. It's just one of those little steps, right? So whenever I'm playing things like this and something where, has everybody seen the music for this? No rests, right? Right? Right. Yeah. No rests. So you have to create your own rests in order to breathe, right? And the way I think about it is the fewer the better, and the maximum amount of air in the smallest space possible, right? So you want to do your breathing exercises in a fashion to where you can get a massive amount of air in the smallest amount of space, so that you don't have to take multiple breaths going through, and you can create these longer phrases. I want to point out something that he's doing very well. A lot of times people play this excerpt, be-da, ba-da, bum, be-da, ba-dum, bum, right? They play it in pairings, and there's a pivot note in each one of these. It's dee-da-da-da, bum. The third note. It's sort of a pivot note between you're going down and then you pivot back up to go down. So you get these two groupings of notes. And if you really study this long enough, it sort of has that dual purpose there. It belongs to the first group and the second group, essentially making it all one grouping. And when you do it this way, you allow yourself to create these bigger phrases, not just ba-da, ba-da, ba, ba-da, ba-da, ba, but dee-da-da-dee-da, ya-da-da-dee-da, da-da-da-dee-da-dee-dee-da-da-dee-bum, right? Think more four-bar phrases with a lot of stuff. So another little picky thing with the intonation, anytime that you're out, and I'm sure you'll probably get a recording of this, you'll hear you're generally low, on the low side.
Okay.
So just something to think about with this one. This is another one that in order to get it consistent every time, I'd walk around. It was when I was over at the Navy band. They had this huge thing called the sail off where we rehearsed. And I would just walk around just mindlessly playing this over and over and over and over and over again to where it just became muscle memory. You know, this is one of those excerpts I feel like it should be in your pocket, right? And you have it very well mastered, but to get it like every single time, repetition, right? Practice the consistency. Whenever, play a phrase, if you got every note, good, don't celebrate, just move on to the next phrase, right? Great, can you start right here for me, please? Thanks, Stephen. Really nice low range. I love how like whenever you get down to the pill register, it just stays open. It stays, it sounds like everything is just flexed open, right? And relaxed, okay? I want to just touch on a few things that we can improve, you know? So how much of your routine, daily routine would you say you dedicate to breathing and breathing exercises?
Not much.
Not much. Is there a reason just because in general it's just not fun, right?
Yeah.
Okay. It sucks. It does. You know, and a lot of time it's lack of direction. You know, like a lot of times, before I got this book I'm about to mention, I knew I needed to do breathing exercises, but I never did them because I was like, well, all right, what am I gonna do? I feel like I'm pretty good at breathing. I'm still alive. You know. Yeah. You know, and so but I didn't have like good exercises, and I didn't have exercises that would directly equate to something in the music or something in my playing. It's like, all right, I did that breathing exercise. It's great. All right, what am I supposed to notice something different, right? There's this book out there called The Breathing Gym. If you guys haven't purchased this book or haven't ever heard of this book, go get it today. I guarantee you, like it's two guys out. It's Sam Palafian and Pat Sheridan. Thank you. Out in California, and it's one thing I loved about this book, and I really started using it a lot, is because it actually tells you when doing this exercise, this is what you can notice in your playing, right? So one thing that I think you would really benefit from doing some of these breathing exercises is stabilizing your sound on the long notes. You have a great airstream whenever you're playing legato. It's very consistent and it stays moving the entire time. But the moment you sit on a longer note, it tends to fluctuate, right? So one of the breathing exercises that directly relates to that, in my opinion, is I do this one. I start every day. I start with in for 4 counts, out for 4 counts, 4 times, right? So let's do that together, right? When you're doing this, stand feet shoulder width apart and just keep your body relaxed, okay? And have you seen them do this, right? You're like, you put your right. Let's use this. Basically, I don't know what they call this. I just look kind of dumb being like, do this. But it's basically you're wanting to hear the lowest pitch possible as the air rushes past your hand. So if you're hearing, you're doing it wrong, right? You want to hear, right? Something as low as you possibly can. Drop the jaw, get the teeth open, and bring in as much warm air as possible, right? So we're going to do this up to 4, in for 4, out for 4, right? 4 times. 1, 2, 3, and... So a couple things to focus on while you're doing that. That was 4, right? Is that 4? I think so. Okay. A couple things to focus on while you're doing that is whenever you get to the sort of the top 20% of your lung capacity, first of all, that's with the assumption that you're breathing from the bottom to the top, right? When you get to that top 20%, that's usually the portion that people just kind of give up on. They're like, it's hard. I'll just leave it alone. No one can really do that, right? No, you got to open that up. So as you get higher, feel more relaxed, right? Your body's going to want to tense up. But tell your body, it's fine, just relax your shoulders. And actually utilize that top 20% because that's what's going to get you those longer phrases, right? So I do this exercise, we're going to do, I guess we don't have to do it, but I do 4 in, 4 out. And then I'll do 4 quick breaths. So I'll go. Right? Trying to fill all the way up, 100% bottom to top. Okay, and then I'll do it on the 4th one. I hold it for 4 counts. Breathe 1 more in for 5. So I'll go. And then to relax. I do that sequence starting with 4s, then going with 5s, all the way up to 10. And what you're going to notice is that your long notes will eventually start to iron out. You know, whenever you get to for instance, the beginning, be ba 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 be ba bong. You'll get that first note, just be bong. There will be no wavering in the beginning or the end of the sound. Okay? Another little trick that I want you to try for me. Take the horn, and what we're going to do is we're going to blow through the horn as fast as we can. And then I'm going to have you play it at the top. Okay? So basically put both valves down. Okay? Make sure there's no spit in there. And we're going to blow through it 16 times. Okay. Bear with me for just a minute. It's going to take just a little bit, but you're going to do it 16 times. If you feel like you're getting dizzy, stop. Right? But as big a breath as possible, as fast through the horn as possible, and then when you feel ready, just go ahead and start on your own. Okay? In and out as quick as you can. Ready, and. Are you ready? Feel better or worse?
Better.
Right? So this exercise it's not going to last your entire practice session. It's going to last for like 5 minutes, right? And then you're back to yourself of not doing breathing exercises every day again. But basically, sorry about that. Oh, way to go, Brent. But basically, it shows you what you can accomplish if you do breathing exercises every day, right? It gives you that boost and shows you, like, all right, I just sort of gave my lungs a jump start, right? And your phrases were so much smoother. I thought that the line was there through every single note, and it was more stable, right? And so, let that motivate you, right? See what you are capable of, and then let it bother you whenever you don't get it, right? Whenever you go home and practice, if you haven't done your breathing exercises and you can't recreate that feeling, be bothered by it. Be bothered to the point where you're like, all right, I'm going to do some breathing exercises. And then you do them, and then you come back to this, and you get that again. And then you realize, all right, if I did this every single day, I could sound like this all the time, right? And then you essentially just took yourself to the next level, right? We've got to move on to the next player, but thank you so much for playing. Is it a metronome? Is it a recording?
I don't know. I'm kind of just thinking quarters.
Just thinking quarters?
Yeah.
Okay. Something that I also use a lot in my practice, and I use this with auditions, and it's been really helpful for me, but it's something that I sort of developed. Basically, so whenever you're preparing to play an excerpt, right? Whether it be in practice or on stage at the audition, you need to have a recording going. You need to have it queued up in your mind, right? And how are you going to have that if you don't have like a listening list? So I'll use this as a great time to actually talk about auditions just for a little bit. So whenever I gear up for auditions, I start about 2 months in advance, right? And I make 2 books, right? I make a book for me and a book for my peers for whenever I'm playing for them, that they can look at it and actually make markings, and they actually have something to look at. Which brings us to the second point: play for people a lot. Right? But the other thing I do, make a paper book of it, but the second thing I do is I make a listening list, right? I queue up all these excerpts. I find about 20 seconds before to about like 5-10 seconds after, and I listen to these things on repeat. And it sucks, because I've heard this thing like a million times. I don't want to listen to it again. But the thing is, I'm ingraining into my brain something that I call sound tagging. Yes, sound tagging. basically, it's something that whenever you, the human brain often will pair senses together, right? You see something on the TV, you can almost taste it. You see your part to a piece of music. You know, whenever I look at this, I can hear the recording start up, right? And it's just sort of like subconscious. It just happens because over time, every time I pull this out, I connect that visual image to that sound, right? And I have one recording I listen to all the time for each of these excerpts. And so it's essentially tagged that sound to the image of this excerpt, so that every time I flip to it on stage, whether it be in practice or a performance, I flip to it, soundtrack just starts up, okay? And the soundtrack's in time, right? So don't think about a metronome, think about the recording. It's going to be in time. Think about being on stage in the moment, performing this piece, right? The first couple bars of this are sort of, you know, if you don't have that music going along with you, you're just sort of playing the notes, you know, and that'll really only get you so far in an audition. You know, you play all the right notes in tune and with a good sound, you know, if you do really well, you'll advance to finals. Well, what I've learned by my own successes and by successes of others is that the people, and just sort of picking their brains about it, the people that win these auditions are not the people who present the right notes at the audition, it's the people who present the right music at the audition. Like, you are playing Wagner, right? Not just playing the notes he wrote down, okay? And that it's so easy to do that whenever you have this sound tag of every time you see this, you're in character. You're in the character of the piece and you're ready to go. It's started and you're just playing along with whoever you've got in your head, New York Philharmonic, Chicago Symphony, whatever, you know? And then you're just joining along and you're playing that piece. Kind of hard to do that right now. I was actually going to do it again, but how about, so let's move on to the next thing. Next thing I was going to talk about articulation on these lower notes. Do you triple tone those or do you single tone on them? Triple. Okay. So basically we need to clean those up a little bit, right? And a quick way of doing that is, one thing I've learned about this excerpt in particular is that instead of trying to remember like what I need to do with my air, what I need to do with my tongue and all that stuff, I just memorize how it feels to play each one of those notes. And then I sort of, whenever the time comes, tell my body, like, do those 3 feelings in a row. So let's start with this first triplet, right? D major. Just play a D for me. We're going to go back and forth, right? The low one, yeah. It's alright. Play it, just forget what I'm doing, just play it and let it feel, play it the way it feels best to play it for you, right? And naturally. Okay? It's fine, it's fine. Basically, the point I'm getting at is I start this slow, and I get each note to sound great on its own, right? So that I can come back to it and sort of just like cutting and pasting. It's like, well, I know how to play a D really great by itself. I can play the F sharp really great by itself. The A really great by itself. But it's, I mean, that's not sort of what you're quizzed on, so to say, at the audition. You have to play them all together. But the idea is that you just sort of cut and you paste them right next to each other so that you have 3 great sounding notes. Ta-ta-ka-ta, right, leading to that 4th C. So you memorize how that feels, and then you start putting them together, right? See natural? Yeah. And it just, it takes time, but you eventually get there where you just get it faster and faster and faster, right? Until you're getting 3 images, sort of your greatest D you've ever played, your greatest F sharp, your greatest A you've ever played, all together, okay? Instead of playing it and being like, oh, the F sharp was okay, but I feel pretty good about it. You know what I mean? So, which brings us to my next point. Have the whenever you're doing these excerpts, you've got to beat guys out there that are practicing like 4 hours a day. So you got to be the guy that practices 5 hours a day, right? But basically, you've got to be the guy that brings the most detail to the audition. You know, the most nuance, the most characteristically correct details about this, right? So whenever you're separating all these notes, make sure that the character is there, right? For instance, on this one, whenever we have that triplet leading up to the C, we want to ya-ta-ta-ta, right? So I'll back it up and do that slowly. Right? You're practicing that like in dynamics, like sort of echelon dynamics, right? Can we do, let's start, can you play that one more time? And I want you to think about a few things when you're doing this. One, this room's tough to play in, right? It's sort of, your sound just sort of drops off. Regardless of what room you're put in an audition, you have to play the way you play in the best space you've ever played in, right? So imagine you're not in here, okay? Imagine that you're in Boston Symphony Hall, standing in the middle of the stage, and it's gonna resonate, anything you put out there, and you're just gonna blow right through the horn, free blowing, okay? Try this one more time at the top. Bring it up a couple dynamics, break them down here. Hear the recording as you play, right? Great job. The recording, just listen to it every single day. Right? Great job. Thanks. Basically, I just want to leave you guys with a couple of thoughts. I didn't get to talk a whole lot about auditions as much as I wanted to, but if you guys have any questions about that, just feel free to email me or find me in the hallway or something. But basically, as you practice and as you get older, obviously you get out of school and you don't have someone sort of hounding you anymore. You don't have a teacher, you don't have to report to anybody on a weekly basis, you just report to yourself, right? And so what's so important is that whenever you get out of school and you're still working to win that job or win that teaching job or get the better gigs, right? Beat someone out for a gig or whatever, that you're always remembering to continue the advancement of your playing. To work on the details, never be happy with good enough. Never be happy with like, this is what I've got and it's been pretty good, it's been working for me. No, always try to be better. Imagine the perfect like trombone sound in your head and think to yourself, all right, what am I doing that, like, I'll break it down for what I do. Charlie Vernon is like my mentor. That guy is who I want to play like. And so growing up, I constantly thought, all right, well, what is he doing that I'm not? What is Randy Hawes doing that I'm not? Whenever I was, in school and stuff, so I got both their CDs and I learned every solo on it. And I was like, all right, he just sounds better on that lick than I do. Why? Right? And it was the details. I was playing the same notes as him. I was playing him in tune and in time, and I thought it was pretty good sound. But it just didn't sound right. It didn't sound the same as him. And so you really got to focus on the details in your own playing, and never just be happy. I mean, you can be happy, but be happy. But always want to better yourself. Stay hungry for practice and figuring out the trombone, and with hard work, success will find you. So anyway, thank you guys so much for coming to this masterclass and listening to me talk about it.